Okay, guys. So this video is going to kind of have one foot in the boat and one foot in the water. But the topic for this, when I say one foot in the boat and one foot in the water, is that this is going to kind of tie into the physical aspiration aspect of my channel, and it's also going to tie into the motivational psychology aspect of my channel. So this is going to kind of have two purposes here. I guess you can make an argument that all my videos have two purposes, but like I said, this one is definitely going to have one foot in the boat and one foot in the water when it comes to the physical, the physical motivation as well as the psychological motivation. And this is a phrase that has meant a lot to me, and it's what I used to tell myself to get myself up and moving when I didn't want to be up and moving. Yes, guys, there are days where even I get tired. There are days where I get upset. There are days where I don't want to do anything. That's part of being a human being. It's just you just can't let that win every single time. But with that being said, the phrase that I used to tell myself, okay, the phrase I used to tell myself, the desire to get better has to be stronger than the desire to stay the same. The desire to get better has to be stronger than the desire to stay the same. Another way to say that, what's more important? Getting better or staying the same? What's more important? Getting better or staying the same? Now, before we move any further with this, I just want to make sure that we get this crystal clear. This is absolutely a question only you can answer. Only you can answer this question. I can't answer this for you. No one else can answer this for you. You have to come to full terms with the question of what's more important, getting better or staying the same? What's more important, staying the same or getting better? Whatever. There's a lot of different ways you can flip them words around. Okay, guys, there's a lot there. But when you tell yourself what's more important, getting better or staying the same, is you've honestly got to ask yourself that question with anything you do in life. I don't care if you're just going to bed and just folding bed sheets. You got to ask yourself that question all day, every day. What's more important, getting better or staying the same? You absolutely have to ask yourself that question. Because when you perform an action, it's implied and somewhat intrinsic that this is helping you. Well, Jonathan, how does listening to music or how does watching TV help me? Well, it might calm you down. It might take your mind off things. It might help you unwind. Now, some things are obviously a little bit easier to see that they're helping you, but some things aren't. And I can tell you where this question really comes into play, what's more important, getting better or staying the same, where this really comes into play, where this comes into action, is when you are staring at an old habit in the face. And that old habit is kicking and screaming so loud that you almost can't do anything other than want to make it stop. And most times those old habits only stop when you indulge in said activity. Okay? So when you're facing temptation square in the face, when you're having a weak moment, when you're having a difficult moment, and you say to yourself, I might fall back on an old habit. I might fall back on an old habit with negative self-talk. I might fall back on an old habit with eating garbage. I might fall back on an old habit and watch crummy entertainment. I might fall back on an old habit and I'm going to start, bothering people, whatever the case may be. I might fall back on an old habit and start blaming myself. Okay? So, when you are in a weak moment and you're about to fall back on an old habit, this is when it starts. This is exactly the moment where you need to make a decision. You need to ask yourself what's more important, getting better or staying the same. Because you've been doing this bad habit over and over again, and guess what? It's got you exactly where you are. Good, bad, or indifferent, it's got you here. So you have to ask yourself, do I want to keep walking down that road? Do I want to keep going in that direction? Do I want to reinforce what is already pulling me down, what is already crippling me? That's what you have to ask yourself. What's more important, getting better or staying the same? What's more important, getting better or staying the same? And that is a lifelong process, guys. Don't just wake up one day and say, "Oh, well, yeah, I walked past the fridge and yeah, I didn't grab any of the pop, or I didn't grab the beer." That's a victory. That's a victory. And that's a good victory. By all means, that is a good victory. You're probably going to walk past that fridge a couple more times during the day. Will you have another victory then? Only you can decide that one. But guys, the point is that you have to ask yourself what's more important, getting better or staying the same. Because if you want to stay the same, I promise you, the world will do everything in its power to help bring that about. Just between the entertainment and the food we eat, that will manifest itself very easily. Okay? The harder path is getting better. The harder path is breaking the old habits. The harder path is establishing better habits. Old habits take a long time to die. New habits take a long time to get established. And sometimes old habits come kicking in when you least expect them. And that's okay. You just need to ask yourself what's more important, getting better or staying the same. And if you can answer that question, and if you can answer that question correctly, and only you can decide what the correct answer to that question is. I can't tell you the correct answer to that question. But if you can find the correct answer for you, and if you can apply that answer consistently over and over and over again, then what's going to happen is eventually you're going to get stronger. You're going to get more resilient. It's going to be easier to make that decision. So this isn't a one and done where you get to decide, oh, well, I made one good decision and I'm over with. Probably not. But with consistent effort over and over again, eventually you will be able to make more good decisions as time moves forward. And this might be a shock, because it sure was a shock to me. After a while, your default will flip. Your default will flip. It's not as glorious as TV made it out to be. But when your default switches over to the constructive path instead of the destructive path, I guess you've made it when you have to convince yourself to follow the destructive path instead of having to convince yourself to follow the constructive path. So you got two paths in front of you. You got the destructive and the constructive. And as of right now, today, you may have to convince yourself to walk towards construction. Can't see my hand. You may have to convince yourself to walk towards construction. As time moves forward, you may get to the point where you have to convince yourself to walk towards destruction. You might have to convince yourself to walk towards destruction. And that is a great indicator that you are on the road to healing and you're on the road to becoming who you are. So if you get to that point, Kudos, pat yourself on the back, give yourself a golden star because you've earned it. You can change your default. You can change your default to automatically move towards constructive ideas, constructive activities, constructive hobbies instead of destructive hobbies, destructive activities, destructive speech. So, if you get there, good. I'm happy for you. And I really am happy for you because when you automatically move towards the good, when you automatically move towards the light, when you move towards wholesomeness, when you move towards completeness, when you move towards health, when you move towards well-being, when that is your default, things are going to go a lot easier, I promise. There's always going to be something that's trying to pull you back. That's just part of life, man. Can't fix that. But by default, you're going to want to move towards the good. And if you want to move towards the good in your day-to-day affairs, after a while, you're going to really start to see those benefits. They're going to start multiplying on top of themselves to the point where you're going to wake up one day and you're going to say, wow, look how far I've came. Look how far I've came. And I hope you can have that victory. I hope you can have that moment. And if you do have that moment, just remember you've earned it because you did the work. I may have assisted you, and if I did, I'm happy to help. But ultimately, you're the one that did the work. So enjoy that victory if you have it. And I hope you do. I really do. Okay, guys, so that takes care of this lesson here. What's more important, getting better or staying the same? What's more important, whatever the case may be. So I appreciate you guys. You have a great rest of your day, and I will see you for the next one.